Have you ever wondered how the world would be if women never had the right to vote? Today we delve into the fascinating history of women's suffrage across the globe. The concept of women's suffrage is simple yet profound. It's about women having the same political rights as men, the right to vote being one of the most significant. The journey towards women's suffrage spans from the late 19th to the 20th century, a time of great change and progress. But this journey wasn't uniform. Each country had its own unique path, its own struggles, and its own victories. Some nations granted women the right to vote earlier than others, and the methods used to achieve this varied widely. Women's suffrage is more than just a historical event, it's a testament to the power of perseverance, the importance of equality, and the potential for change. So, let's embark on this journey to understand how women's suffrage unfolded in different parts of the world. The United Kingdom, the year is 1918. A significant year in history. The journey towards women's suffrage was not an easy one. It was a long, arduous road marked by countless protests, tireless campaigning, and in some instances, even loss of life. It was a battle fought on many fronts, and in the United Kingdom, the struggle was particularly intense. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the women's suffrage movement in the UK was gaining momentum. It was led by a group of courageous women known as the Suffragettes, who, under the banner of the Women's Social and Political Union, fought relentlessly for women's right to vote. The suffragettes used a combination of peaceful protest and direct action to make their voices heard. They held public meetings, organized marches, and even went on hunger strikes. They faced opposition, ridicule, and even imprisonment, but they remained undeterred. Their struggle reached a turning point in 1918. After years of campaigning, lobbying, and protesting, the suffragettes' efforts finally bore fruit. The British Parliament passed the Representation of the People Act in 1918, a monumental law that marked a significant shift in British society. The act was revolutionary. For the first time in history, women were given the right to vote. But the victory was not complete. The act only extended suffrage to women over the age of 30 who met certain property qualifications. While it was a significant step forward, it was not the full equality the suffragettes had fought for. It would take another decade, until 1928, for all women over the age of 21 to be granted the right to vote, on equal terms with men. The 1918 Representation of the People Act was a significant milestone in the journey towards gender equality in the United Kingdom. It was a testament to the power of protest, the strength of conviction, and the tireless efforts of the suffragettes. And that was the breakthrough moment, when British women over 30 owning property had their voices heard for the first time. Crossing the Atlantic, we land in the United States, where the fight for women's suffrage was equally intense. A spark ignited in the summer of 1848, in a small town named Seneca Falls, New York. Here, a group of 5 women, including the famous Elizabeth Cady Stanton, organized the first Women's Rights Convention. Over 200 women and men gathered to discuss the social, civil, and religious condition and rights of women. It was here that the Revolutionary Declaration of Sentiments was drafted, asserting the equality of all men and women and demanding the right to vote for women. The convention marked a significant start in the long and hard-fought battle for women's suffrage. In the subsequent years, the movement gained momentum. The National American Woman Suffrage Association, or NAWSA, was formed. This organization, led by women like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, was instrumental in leading the fight. They lobbied, marched, and protested, demanding that women be given the same rights as men. They faced opposition, ridicule, and even imprisonment, but they never wavered in their pursuit of equality. The turn of the 20th century saw the movement gaining even more ground. Women's suffrage parades and protests became more frequent and more visible. Women and men from all walks of life joined in the cause, making it a national issue. The pressure was mounting on the government to make a change. And change did come, although not until 2 decades into the 20th century. In the year of 1920, after years of tireless advocacy and relentless struggle, the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution was finally ratified. This landmark amendment prohibited the states and the federal government from denying the right to vote to citizens of the United States on the basis of sex. Women at last had won the right to vote. In 1920, American women finally had the chance to participate in the democracy they helped build. From the Western world, let's travel to other parts of the globe where the fight for women's suffrage had its own unique challenges and victories. Our first stop is New Zealand. an island nation that holds the honor of being the first country in the world to grant women the right to vote. The year was 1893, and it was an achievement that came after years of tireless campaigning by women like Kate Shepherd, whose face now graces the country's $10 note in recognition of her efforts. Next, let's hop over to Australia. Australian women gained the right to vote and stand for parliament in 1902, albeit with some restrictions. Indigenous women, for instance, didn't enjoy these rights until much later. Onwards to Canada, where the struggle for women's suffrage was a province-by-province battle. The western provinces led the charge, with Manitoba granting women the right to vote in 1916. It wasn't until 1919 that women across the country could vote in federal elections. Now, let's traverse to Asia. In Japan, the fight for women's suffrage was tied to larger movements for political change. Women were finally granted the right to vote in 1945, as part of the post-World War II reforms. Our journey takes us lastly to Africa, where the timeline for women's suffrage is as diverse as the continent itself. South Africa, for example, granted white women the right to vote in 1930, but it would take another 34 years before black women could do the same. Though each of these movements had its own unique struggles, milestones, and victories, they all shared a common goal: the right for women to have a say in the decisions that affected their lives. The fight was hard-won, but the results were transformative. Though the timelines varied, the spirit of these movements was the same: a demand for equality and representation. From New Zealand in 1893 to Saudi Arabia in 2015, the journey of women's suffrage is a testament to the power of perseverance and the quest for equality. This journey, which we've traced in this video, is a story of courage, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of justice. In the United Kingdom, women gained the right to vote in 1918. Across the Atlantic, it took the United States 2 more years to grant women the same right. From there, the movement echoed around the globe, from South America to Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Each timeline, each key event, each victory was a stepping stone towards the same goal: equality. And the importance of women's suffrage? It's about more than just the vote. It's about recognizing the equal worth of each individual, regardless of gender. So the next time you cast your vote, remember the long, hard battles fought to make that simple act possible, because every vote counts and every voice matters.